In this video, we're going to complete a question on the resistance of a wire. Pause the video now and try both parts of this question. Which circuit gives the highest reading on the ammeter? So we are looking at resistance wire. So firstly, what do we mean by resistance wire? Well, it means, and this is kind of obvious, but it means wire that has a resistance. Now, it's a slightly odd term because, we say that everything has resistance. But what you have to remember is that connecting wires in the circuit, so these wires here, we say have zero resistance. And we say that because they're just a representation of connecting the components up. They're not supposed to affect the circuit because it makes our life simpler. But when it has resistance wire, it means this is a wire that is part of the circuit, which means we have to count as resistance. So what affects resistance? Well, the length of a wire, the higher the length, the longer the length, the higher the resistance. So we probably want to consider the two that are longest, and then we need to think, is it going to be thin or thick resistance wire? So the thinner the wire, the less space there is for the current to get through, which means there's going to be more collisions between the electrons and the ions, which means there's going to be a higher resistance. So it's in fact going to be the one that's got a thin resistance, so circuit D. So sometimes people get this second one mixed up, but just think about trying to get down a corridor. Okay, you have a fixed number of people that are trying to get down that corridor. Now, if there's a lot of people, they're going to get in each other's way and they're going to collide with each other. Supposing they get to a really narrow section of the corridor. The same number of people are trying to get through, but the corridor is really thin. So what's going to happen? Well, they're all going to bump into each other even more, and the resistance is going to increase when the wire or the corridor is thinner. Obviously, as it gets longer, there is more of the metal to pass, so there are more ions for the electrons to collide with. Part B says what's the resistance of the wire. We've been given current, we've been given potential difference, so we should remember our simple relationship, resistance potential difference divided by current, 6 volts over 1.5 amps, which is 4 ohms. So that one is nice and simple.